The other thing that I would say, and this has got to do with the term leadership, and in my mind, leadership is defined in different levels in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think let's talk about the traditional definition of leadership, which is where you are giving some kind of strategic direction to people, whether that's in your family or whether that's in the workplace, right? I think as a leader, and this is just one definition of a leader, if you're in that sort of a position, I think we need to firstly pay kudos to the very difficult task that leaders have today. And secondly, the fact that they need to embrace the complexities of the situation around them, internalize it for themselves, self-manage themselves, and then give other people direction, right? I know that I went off on a slight tangent here, but I think leaders have a very important role to play in enabling a constructive environment for their teams, for instance, to process themselves and perhaps create a space and steer where they're going to go in the future and in this time of complexity.
See, I don't think, to add on to that point, I don't necessarily think that that was actually steering off in a different direction, because what I am keen to do is say, I look at that definition of leadership, and we think of it, as you point out, traditionally, person at the top, group of people who are following them. But I think if we transplant that over into our lives as well,
yes,
the concept that all of us can be leaders within our own group, and that's not to say everyone's pulling different directions, but I think it comes to a bit of this complexity component and some of the issues you talked about, right? We can't control what other people do. Well, the most that we can do is almost like regulate ourselves, right? And so within each of our respective spheres, we are the leader within that group. So if we sort of all go, no, someone else is looking after it, it's someone else's problem, this is too hard, this is too complex, I want someone else to make it easy for me, that in and of itself is actually part of the challenge, because that is what allows systemic inertia to occur, right? Because it's always somebody else who looks after it. So in terms of engaging in complex, uncomfortable conversations, and I've certainly been through several of these now, it takes a level of effort to be able to go, okay, someone is yelling at me. Now I can either yell back, or I can try and separate it back and kind of expand further and be able to say, okay, what can we do to engage in this? And that requires that level of that consciousness around it. But also, I would contend that is what then is able to demonstrate leadership to others. Like there's been times where, for me, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of accusations, and I was the one that thanked them afterwards to sort of say, and I don't mean that in a trumpet blowing perspective, I'm just sort of saying, you know what, we had a challenging conversation. I thank you for the opportunity that we've had to have this, and that we can still remain friends.
Well, Scott, my immediate response to that is perhaps you have the ability to depersonalize, and not everyone does. And I think you've just demonstrated a great leadership quality there in itself, right?